Hey, I think we're
Hey,
live.
I think we're live too. So, what's new in the world of Matt? What
Um, what is new? Um,
did you read this developer survey? Yeah, ish. You read the headings.
I did read the headings. Oh,
Okay.
I'm in the wrong space. Oh, I'm in the wrong. That's not it. I want to do that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
you want to be in liminal space, right? This is the important place to be.
I want to open up the link that you sent me, not the link that I sent you with the
Fair enough.
StreamYard like what is going on here?
What is happening?
Yeah, I did a brief um skim through it
Hmm.
a week ago,
Okay.
and I haven't really gone through it since.
Well, I don't think it changed in a week.
Well, no, that's probably correct. So, first off, what? Let's see. I guess I could actually show it on the screen, but I don't know how to do that.
Oh yeah, you can share a screen under present
I
there.
can
I think is
present,
is one of them.
share screen.
It's going to be one of those weird video only podcasts.
Yeah. Would you like to record? Sure.
I think
What?
if that's the case, the overview might be an easy place to start. Like these cards at the top, I think the conclusions basically.
Okay, so I'll do that later. Okay, so I can't do that.
Oh, you need permissions
Um,
or whatever on that.
yeah. So yeah, we're looking at
Hmm.
survey.stackoverflow.co.
Yep.
And for the no one that's listening right now, but they
Well,
might later on.
the long tail will come in and listen to this later,
Long
and,
tail,
and they'll want to go back and know exactly what
they
was
will
happening
want
in
to know. So
2023.
for them, it's survey, and it might be easier for me to write it on a piece of paper than to share it.
It just hold
But
it up. Yeah.
survey.stackoverflow.co. And last week, I think I went to a subsection of it
Right.
rather than the actual, because when searching for it, the AI topic came up first,
Right.
and nothing else. Um, but well, before that, I mean, did anything come up in your world? I mean, we jumped to my world and then to
Oh,
this.
listen, Chock-a-block. So you know how
Uh-huh.
there is a big company announced a VR headset, or sorry, a headset.
Mm-hmm.
Got everyone excited, so I went out and,
Uh-huh.
and bought one. Uh, because of course you can't buy them yet. I bought the PSVR 2.
Oh, yeah.
And while I'm purchasing it, my significant other says to me, "Are you purely purchasing this because you can compare it to the thing that's going to come out next year and talk about it on the podcast?" And I was like, "Maybe just a portion, like 5% of this." Because like I want to stay relevant. Because honestly, I feel like I thought VR was dead technology, seriously,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I didn't plan on revisiting it for a while. But I did feel like using the Galaxy VR, you know, the one with the phone and the two
Mm-hmm.
glasses that kind of then go around it, kind of thing. I really like that actually, and I thought
Okay.
maybe I should see if I still like it before, taking the dive and grabbing something that's roughly 4,000 Canadian dollars. Was my argument to myself. So like it's a down payment on paying more money later. That totally makes sense, right? I
Oh,
got
so
it. Yeah,
it's 4,000 Canadian. That way, by being in America, I can think I'm saving money
yeah.
because it's only 3,500, right? Yeah.
Yeah. If you're thinking about
Yeah.
some sort of like forex arbitrage
Yeah.
kind of opportunity cost here, like yeah,
Sure. Yeah, I'm set.
yeah, or like Australian dollars or something. It's definitely cheaper in the
Yeah.
US than it is elsewhere,
So
for
I'm thinking
sure.
of my justification for Tony, in 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay. So continue. Sorry.
No. I mean, there's really not much there. The biggest thing that I missed right away is the lack of a web browser on the Sony version,
Mm,
and that I really did like on the Samsung version was just being able to browse the web,
mm,
do things as well as have. You were just talking about spaces, but as well as have something over here in the corner that I can turn to and grab. That is in
right.
fact like a web session. So
Right.
there's no like session management, or it's not a
Mm,
computing platform. It's made for gaming. So I get that.
sure.
However, those
Yeah.
creature comforts that you get used to in another platform are things I immediately missed. And immediately I think would really like actually in something like an Apple platform where I might have tabs or spaces or apps that are
Hmm.
open. Because it does seem to have like that launcher, that window manager. We talked a little bit about other ones for Mac, that kind of stuff. It does have that in the, I think it's Oculus who partnered with Samsung, so it's got like that Oculus experience, whereas the PlayStation VR does not. In fact, it's got the same hub, which is all right, but it's not the same, and it's a menu that floats like a HUD, like a heads-up display kind of thing, and it's really just the same as what you'd see on your TV. There's no difference. There's no added features or extras or anything there that would make it better in VR. All that's gone. It's purely just a static launcher that that will allow one resumed app, which is probably the key problem here, and not allow more than one resumed app, a resumable app that will resume from exactly where you were in the game or what have you. So I could like watch YouTube and play a VR game and go back and forth, which is pretty much what I did the whole time. And the resolution is 1080p at a juicy 120 hertz, which is great.
Okay.
But
1080 on both sides?
I think the way
Or
VR
split
works,
across the...
yeah, no, it's I think it's on each side, but the way your brain works is that you get the effective resolution of 1080.
Okay.
And you can kind of see the noise too, which is like a whole other thing. So I can see like the pixel noise, which is not screen dooring. It's like a dither pattern that I definitely notice as I move my head around. And honestly, like some of the head tracking stuff is a lot better. Some of the motion controls are a lot better. That's really cool. But wouldn't it be great if there was a headset that didn't require two controllers? Like right away, that was the biggest thing that I didn't like, because there's that whole, I'm going to rant here a little bit, but there's that whole unboxing thing of like, it needs to be charged. Nothing was charged. It needs to be updated. It comes with a bundle game, but that's a digital download code, not a disc you can put in. And to get the whole thing set up took about 2 hours just to have it set up, like going through the tutorial and stuff like that. And anytime you want to turn it on and play something is going to take about 5 minutes. There's no put on headset and start experience, which is where you start understanding like the beauty of having a system that's all together. Even on the Galaxy VR, it was your phone, so you put it into VR mode and you strapped it on your face and you were good to go. There was no step 3, which is nice, but there are a lot of steps to run through, and health and safety guidelines and things like that pop up that you can dismiss, and it says do not remind me for a while, but it doesn't say like never remind me ever. It's like we're gonna annoy you with this later. For now you can dismiss it, which is like, there's a lot of clicks here just between me and the enjoyment of the content, which I find incredibly annoying. I just want to get in and play it. Like, honestly, this is a monitor. Let me plug in the monitor that straps on my face and we'll go from there. I get that there's sensors and all that stuff, but sometimes I don't need any of that. I just want to like do something. And it so really gets in the way.
That is only for the PlayStation, right? You can't use it with anything else.
Fun wrinkle is that it's actually just a monitor, so it can work on a PC with something called, I think it's called Vision Link of all things. There was a consortium of a bunch of companies that got together and decided on one USB cable that would support HDMI or MHL possibly, USB communication as well as the power, all three in one. And so some video cards support this. They'll have like a USB-C plug on the back of the video card. The 2000 series from NVIDIA, for example, does. 3000, 4000 series do not. I think some newer ATI cards do. So it's if you've got one of the cards, you can just plug and play. But again, it's only 1080p at 120, and it's a floating window. It's not 3D. Which brings me to the last part of the rant. I thought getting a VR headset would allow me to watch VR content, but whoa, was I wrong. There's no way to watch VR movies or 3D movies that Sony has produced. Let alone, apparently there's apps that you can get, so you can put it on a USB stick and then like run the app, and it will do like one eye, like the video stream per eye kind of thing. And they're encoded different ways so you can get, but there's no like VLC app, for example, which is what you have on the Samsung phone. Like if all else fails, VLC's got your back. There's none of that because it's a closed ecosystem. There's no Kodi. There is a Plex app, but again, there's no Plex. There's no Plex VR, which I really liked on Galaxy. So it's like a virtual cinema that you sit in to watch your movie. Again, not important, but pretty cool. It does add to the experience to have that little sort of stage that things play on. None of that's there. And it's really disappointing, honestly. Like the gaming is fun, but what I thought I was getting, and what I probably should have done a little bit more research into, is like actual VR computing platform.
Like this might have been written about before. And
I don't want to spoil
article.
reviews, right? Like it's just like a movie. I don't want to read someone's review before I purchase it. And even just to like add insult to injury, apparently the tape they put on the bundle that I bought is pretty bad. So all the boxes were opened. So at Best Buy when I bought it, they said, "Hey, you know, it's not open box, but the box is open," which is like, listen. I don't want to argue here, but this box is clearly open. So there's no discount or anything like that. But on top of this, there is like what do they call that? It's like there's no returns. Like it's final sale, basically. I was like, well, wait a second. The box is
all
open.
the downside of open box, but none of the upside.
None of the upside, no discount, no nothing. I was like, oh, that's great. So they did handwrite a thing saying like, hey, you can return this in 30 days if anything's missing inside.
Okay.
Like if someone stole the game card or whatever for the code, which is what I expected would have happened, but it was fine. But yeah, the retail shopping experience is really,
how much is it?
It's really not great. In maple syrup dollars, it's almost $1,000. Like all told, all told together, and it's arguable whether or not I'll get $1,000 out of it. There are games for it that I do want to play. Like there's a Horizon game for it that I really want to play, Gran Turismo, which I'd really like to be inside of a car while driving, and I think it's pretty cool. So there's definitely things in there that.
And how much is the PlayStation these days?
Let's say about $500, maybe $550. Okay. It's probably a bit more here, but I think that's what it is in the US. So yeah, it just in terms of like cost on the US side, I think the PlayStation and the PSVR 2 are roughly the same price. So to get like that whole system would cost you about $1,000 US, maybe a little bit over. I might be misspeaking here, but I think it's about that. Either like $100 less or $100 more.
And what are the other alternatives for VR right now that are, I mean, it's what, Oculus is the company? Or no, that's Facebook?
Yeah, so I think there's the Oculus, and then there's the Steam VR. I forget what they call that.
No, I didn't know
I believe they actually are more expensive. So if that helps, so this is considered affordable. And then when I started looking at their prices, the Apple pricing kind of made sense to me in terms of like what you get.
Right.
However, there's like a lot of stuff here. So having like a string attached to something that's on your head is not comfortable. You do not want a cable plugged in. And I can understand why they say it's wireless. However, having a battery pack dangling off the side might be a game breaker. The other thing is in terms of weight. So the Sony one also doesn't have that like stripe over the forehead or the other way or the top of your head, meaning that it's purely weighed in like mostly at the top of your forehead and the back of your, like just above your neck, at the back of your head. And it's pretty, like when you get it all set together, it's got to be pretty tight to stay right in place so that your eyes don't shift left and right. So you don't get chromatic aberration. So like red or blue fringing off of things.
Right.
And you've essentially got your head in a vice for about 2 hours, depending on what you're doing. And depending on the person, this could cause headaches right away. Like my partner, for example, was saying, no, this immediately sounds uncomfortable. I do not want a hat that's too tight on my head for too long.
Yeah.
I don't think those are her exact words, but something like that. Like, this does not sound fun. Paraphrasing.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been up to. I don't know.
I'm trying to think the last time I wore any sort of VR headset. I mentioned the time I was at Datadog in the office.
Right.
But actually there was another time. It was at Dash, Datadog Dash, when we one of the parties was like on a boat.
I remember this. Yes, I've heard about it. I was not there for this.
And the lower floor had, or not lower, but I mean you're still above the water.
Lower deck
had like 3 or 4 of these VR kind of stations
on a boat.
And so imagine you're kind of in this other world, and your head tilts, and you're like, oh, this is kind of motion, but then there's motion like on the boat, which is really weird.
Yes.
And kind of not quite vomit inducing, but close.
You get that like otherworldly kind of inner ear feeling, right?
Yeah. And then I just I was going through my old my YouTube account and scrolling through like a whole bunch of unpublished videos. Well, they were published at one point, and then I've made them private. And one of them is when we still had the office at 286 Fifth. So we had at that time we probably had 2 floors plus the roof deck, and one of the designers had it on, and I just recorded him like looking around, looking crazy.
Right.
And I tried that. I don't know. That would have been 7 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
And so I don't know what system that would have been, but it was definitely hooked up to it must have been a PC.
Right. How big was it? Was it quite deep? Because there was that dev kit
Yeah, there was
for a
one
while.
that was like, it looked like it was a good 3-4 inches going out of his head. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was some like DK1, I think, from Oculus was pretty big. I hadn't tried many headsets, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do look a little bit ridiculous, but this
Yeah.
one looks kind of okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
feels like I'm in Ghost in the Shell or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where this is the monitor that I use, and maybe my
You're right.
fingers split off into like 100 fingers so I can type faster, you know, on like 5 keyboards.
Uh-huh.
We'll get there. We'll get there. It is pretty cool. The funny part was the best part of the experience was the room mapping, which is not necessary for my type of gaming, which is kind of sit down stuff.
The what?
The room mapping. So when you've got it on, it has sensors on the front that can detect where objects are in the room.
Oh.
And we'll map it out in real time with I think it's like a polygonal kind of thing, a polygonal mapping thing where it looks like it's sending our LiDAR pulses to do
Okay.
so. That could be an effect, but it does at least seem to know distance. Monitors look like black holes, which is actually pretty cool.
Right.
If they're off, they just continue forever. Which is funny. Mirrors look like a whole other world, which is also kind of neat.
Wow.
Especially if they're dirty, it can kind of detect, and then it goes into this whole other realm. It looks really interesting. The other is it's got a pass-through mode, and this pass-through mode is in black and white. And there was a lot of brouhaha about Apple's pass-through mode being in color, and I thought, you know, like who cares about the pass-through mode? No one's going to be using that. They're going to be stuck in their virtual world. And it turns out, actually, when you're looking through even like a normal refresh rate in black and white, there's like a very odd. I felt like Predator. Is that the movie where like it's like infrared vision is like?
Yeah.
It felt very, very odd. As if I was like I felt like a cyborg at that point in time.
Yeah.
Regardless of what people are looking at me, feel like it felt like very strange. It was a very odd feeling to have somewhat lower resolution but high refresh rate and low latency black and white video. There's like a combination of like retro plus high tech at the same time that just made it feel very, very odd.
Wow.
And that part itself just automatically makes you feel different. And when you look at the controllers, they get highlighted with like a pulsating ellipse, like oval. I guess depends on the angle you're looking for, but it will outline them and pulsate, and it just looks. It's just like whoa, what's going on? There's kind of like AR or XR stuff going on because it's detecting things in my room and like letting me know that this is the thing I should be reaching out for.
Yeah,
which is odd. And the controllers themselves are a weird shape with this hoop in it that I still can't seem to figure out how to put my hand through to grab the controller. If you're not looking at it, if you're looking at it, it makes sense. But as you're fumbling around, kind of in the dark, you're not blind, but like you've got a headset on, and I could turn on the transparency mode, but then that pauses the game. So where's the controller? I put it down to like you can't drink either if you want to have like I was trying to drink a coffee with it on. It's a little bit too far down your nose, so you got to tilt way back. And it's like, oh, am I gonna spill this all over my face? I don't know. So I put the controller down, had a drink, tried to grab the controller again, couldn't even put my hand into it. So I can totally understand some of these benefits that people were talking about being amazing. And I guess now, I don't know, should I just return it now that I know all the benefits of the Apple thing?
Yeah.
I'll give it a go, but we'll see if it becomes a family hand-me-down or what have you.
Wow. And so it reminded me of two things. First off, just trying to deal with things when you can't see, and there's a restaurant that I went to in Amsterdam when I still lived in Amsterdam that was where all the lights are off.
Right.
And all the wait staff are apparently blind or sight impaired, and you are just feeling around for your. I mean, they give you a knife and fork, but nobody uses it because, the food is
serve you like escargot or something.
All the food is easy to eat with your fingers, and not too hot and not too weird. And I mean, if the lights were on, I'm sure it would go from whatever it was, 50 euros a person to 10 euros a person because
Right.
the food was probably garbage.
The mac and cheese, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess they
Cold
don't
mac
need to
and
worry
cheese
about
so
the
you don't
plating.
burn you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They don't need to worry about the plating or like those swirls.
No. There's none of that.
How did it feel though? Because I
it
did
was
actually kind of find that part
yeah.
of the experience interesting. Exactly, like
Yeah.
figuring out where things were in the room, that kind of stuff.
I mean, it was a fun thing to do as a group. I went with a group called what was it, Meetup, and we used to do a bunch of things together. And that was somebody chose that one time, and I mean, it was interesting, but it was a gimmick.
Did it
But
teach you any empathy? I think that might be part of the goal.
yeah, I think that's the goal. But you're not in there long enough. You're there for a 2-3 hour meal,
Right.
and then that's it.
That's a long meal.
And
3 hour
huh?
meal. That's a long.
Well, when I first, I remember when I first got to Amsterdam, when I first moved there, I met up with another group that went to dinner with. New people. Okay, great. I'm a new person in Amsterdam. Let me go with this group, and we got there at about 6 p.m., 6:30, and it felt very relaxed. We ate a lot of stuff, but
Right.
with a lot of time in between, and a lot of drinking. And I mean, it came out to, I don't know, it was probably about 150 euros a person, and there were probably about 8 of us. Um, and when we were just given our like last drink in the bill, I look at my watch, thinking that, oh, it's probably been like 2 hours, 3 hours, and it was 11:30.
Wow.
And it was a tiny restaurant. There was no like, okay, we got to get to the next table in here. Out you go.
Right.
No, it was just, and I found that everywhere I went, and even when I went to Amsterdam for KubeCon, there were a whole bunch of restaurants. I mean, some very expensive places and some very inexpensive places, and there was never okay, this table is worth X hundreds of dollars to us. You go out now.
Right.
Like, yeah, you're here. I mean, that's it. I mean, you're here for the evening, and if we get the table again, great. That's a bonus, but you're here. Enjoy, relax.
Interesting.
Very different.
Yeah, it's certainly very different. 5.5 hours is long.
Yeah. And it was, and I think that was probably the longest of the meals I had in my 10 years living in the Netherlands, but still, it was there was nothing. I mean, maybe everything was so new to me because I'd probably been there for 3 or 4 days at that point. And so, I mean, anytime you take on something new, everything is overload. And so maybe they were like, leave, please leave. But
You've been here forever. We're out of food.
Yeah. There's a comedian who is very overweight, and that's definitely part of his act, part of his thing that he talks about. And he talks about going to a Chinese all-you-can-eat buffet restaurant.
Oh, this is John Pinette.
Yeah, that's it.
He unfortunately has passed away. My wife.
Oh, really?
Big fans.
Oh,
John Pinette. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the Free Willy one will forever live on in our memory, unfortunately. But John Pinette is fantastic. The voice of was it Hairspray on Broadway?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Very interesting comedian. It's unfortunate. love his stuff, and it's actually a little bit harder to find some of the stand-up routines now that he's passed away, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
So like YouTube kind of bootleg ones that if you want to go back and watch the jokes, and a lot of his stuff is recycled, so you see some of the same jokes. He's kind of really got like 3 specials. The rest of them are kind of recycled jokes, but yeah, definitely a good comedian.
Wow. Yeah.
They ban the fat boy for the restaurant. I think is the
you go home now. You're too big.
Go home, don't come back. Yeah, I was gonna do the voice.
Yeah. But it also reminded me of I was listening to a podcast pretty recently. I can't remember what it was, but I had actually heard another interview with this person or maybe this lab before, where they created devices that would, I don't know, I think they strapped on a wrist initially,
Okay.
maybe onto fingers, but also later on to the chest. And it basically rumbled
Oh.
depending on what you were looking at.
Ah.
And it would require, like, apparently not a very long time, like a day of training to get used to where all the like bumps are and what they mean. But then people who are blind, who are able to walk through a room, walk through a door,
Oh.
and walk in their space because they're feeling all the sensation on their chest or wrist or
Right. Right.
fingers.
Right.
And the brain just sees, oh, there's input, and the input is saying that it doesn't matter whether it's coming from an eyeball or
Weird, right?
somewhere else
What's
on the
that called?
system.
Is it like neuroplasticity where you can
Yeah, I think,
understand like
yeah,
it's just like
yeah,
an added sense? It's very, very interesting to me.
yeah.
I don't
So,
think I mentioned eye tracking, but it's got eye tracking
oh, really? Okay.
as well, and it does have rumble on the head.
Oh,
Just
okay.
I guess we
Okay.
went there.
Yeah,
It's odd to have vibration controls on your head.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe I'll get used to it. It's
yeah.
similar to what we're saying. It does track your eyes, and the game that I
Yeah.
was playing the most, which is a Horizon one, you can actually look at menu items.
Mhm.
My eyes dart around a lot when I play
Yeah.
games. Is what I immediately found out. I was like, I'm looking like I'm not really a high performance gamer or anything like
Yeah,
that, but my eyes are looking everywhere. And I
yeah.
hate to say it, but the immediate thing I thought about is like Datadog and heat maps. Imagine such. I don't know why. Like a
Yeah,
lot of things, I'm always trying to think about what is the like the DevOps angle or the work
right,
angle or
right,
like yeah, like what does an eye heat map mean? Because it's not a
right,
cursor. You can actually track where the eyes are on a page. And
right.
then I immediately thought, oh, dirty, dirty. Like like, gotta wash this off. But like honestly, it does sound very handy to know
Yeah,
exactly what I'm looking at, if not a little bit creepy.
yeah,
But it allows me to see, like, imagine if you wrote this video game and realized
yeah,
there was a portion of the screen that people didn't look at all, and you just spent 3 months making this like
right.
mini map or something like that that people just
Yeah,
don't use. Maybe
yeah.
this would be handy in testing, is how I was
Yeah.
trying to like tell myself that that's an okay thought to have.
Well, I mean,
But really, some of that's kind of
yeah.
neat.
And I think I mentioned last week how it would be nice to be able to uh, bring the current window I'm looking at, bring that forward,
Yes.
so I don't have to move my mouse over to bring it forward, and it's just
Yes.
like, oh, let me look over there and start typing. Let me look down there and start typing. Let me look over there and start typing, and it just acts with me. I mean, that would be
Yeah.
incredible.
That sort of mouse over to focus that we had in X Windows back in
Yeah,
like I don't know 1997
yeah,
is actually like a paradigm that I like, and it's something that's not really obvious in current UIs. We use a drop shadow to indicate what's focused on,
yeah.
which is honestly a pet peeve, especially
Hmm.
in something like material design where that drop shadow is very small on larger
Right,
displays. It's very difficult to tell where your mouse is focused and
right,
therefore which text box you're typing
right.
into, which you'll see all the time. People are typing in the
Mm,
wrong window because they don't realize where the focus is
right,
because it's not
right.
obvious. And I feel
Yeah,
like, yeah, if my eye is looking at something, that's obviously where I want to be typing, not over
yeah,
here. And
yeah.
and maybe there are cases where you want to look at something and type elsewhere, but I think those are
Right.
those are like the lesser cases. So if I'm
Yeah,
reading an activation code on one window and for some reason we'll call it security, you can't paste into the other window. Maybe you want to
yeah,
look at one thing and type in the other. I
yeah,
get that. But
yeah,
it's yeah, we gotta fix this. The
yeah.
multimodal focus versus unfocused versus text input is an issue.
Right,
This whole
right.
cursor model, I think, is an issue.
Mhm.
But I digress.
Yeah.
So that's
Mm,
that's the VR experience. So far,
cool,
so good. We'll see how it
cool.
goes. I think I'm on I don't know, the road to getting an Apple one. We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll change my mind by the time that comes. I will say the
Yeah.
pressure on my nose got a little bit annoying. I think I
Mm,
have a pimple where it was resting, for example. Like I really
yeah,
don't want stuff like resting on my face all the time.
yeah,
And yeah, I'm worried about cleanliness too. Like how often do I have to clean this thing and with
right.
what? I got the glasses dirty immediately because you slide it over your
Mm,
head, which of course puts your
mhm.
hair in your eyes and then
Right.
it's all over the lenses. It's just like, and then we're scrambling trying to figure out like where is the lens cleaner so I can clean this so I can actually use it because I've got it and I
Right.
want to play it, but you can't because you can't see through it because it's just like
Right.
my hair is just so greasy. It's just all over the lens. It was awful. Awful. And then like looking through greasy glasses is like picking up binoculars that haven't been cleaned in years. It's just not fun.
Yeah. Of course, that reminds me of apparently there was a with beards. Beards
Right.
have they're bushy, especially men with bushy beards.
Yep.
They're big and
I've been there.
bushy,
Yeah.
and so for like when we all had to wear face masks,
Right.
they provide very little seal.
Yes.
And there was some like ski patrol on some mountain where all the ski patrol members had to shave in order to get their COVID masks on with a good seal. And there was a story, some video that I saw that was just about how awful it was, but they all understood and they all did it.
Yep.
Apparently some didn't want to do it and they left. But they all understood and so they were all clean shaven and like apparently all their girlfriends loved it. And
really? Added benefit?
So added benefit, yeah. I don't know. I don't
Apparently I
remember
look
that
a
part,
lot
actually.
younger without it.
Yeah, I do too. When I did a program at when I was at Microsoft and I lost a lot of weight. I went from a bit heavier than where I am now. I was about 300, I think, pounds. And within a 4-month period, went down to 220.
Working at Microsoft will do wonders for your body. Apparently, either that is really stressful.
That was a program called 2020 at the Pro Club, and just before I went in, Steve Ballmer had just gone through it, and
you may have mentioned this once. My apologies.
yeah, and so it was this. You're paired up with a psychologist, psychiatrist, dietitian, and all these things, and yeah.
Stressful
Yeah,
job.
yeah. Anyway, we wanted to talk about a report.
Well, if you want to, I mean, I don't know if half an hour is to go through these cards, but I can mention the ones that stuck out to me. Like,
you mean we're supposed to stop exactly on the hour?
It's up to us. But like, do you think Rust is the most admired programming language? Like, is this where we put our admiration these days? It's card number 4. Like
card number 4.
And like
do they have numbers?
Yeah, last year it's 80%. More than 80% of developers admire.
Oh, there you go.
And last year it was MATLAB. I find this incredibly difficult to believe, both for MATLAB and for Rust. Now, MATLAB I understand. So on the
no. Compare this to the least admired.
Oh, okay. Thank you. This does not track. I've used MATLAB. Absolutely not. Anyone who and listen, I love MATLAB. Totally understand. Super handy in like research, science community. That
least admired.
It's not my favorite. Okay. No one wants to use it next year. Totally makes sense.
And so going into the
if you click
what is the blue dot versus the red dot?
I think the blue dot was
desired and admired.
You got it. Yeah. So people who desire and admire. So like the most admired. So the one that's furthest to the right on the side is Rust. But under that is like Elixir? Really? Or like Raku's down there, but Raku is PHP, right? So, like, PHP by any other name. This is PHP 6, I think, is Raku, or is Raku Perl? Is Raku Perl?
I don't know. I don't know what Raku is.
It might be Perl.
Let me go back to. I expanded my window and lost my place. Okay. And I seem to remember it wasn't
it's Perl. Perl and PHP are pretty far right on
admired.
And I'm not saying this isn't true. I'm just saying the people that they got to write the survey think this, which makes me wonder if there are statistically significant members of the community. Because I'm sorry, I have not met anyone mentioning Raku in conversation, let alone Perl, let alone saying that it's admired. And maybe I'm missing. Maybe Perl 6 is missing.
Admired and desired.
So want to learn, and then once they have learned it, want to continue on with it. I think is what they're trying to say.
Right.
Yeah, which do you want? Okay, which have you done extensive development work in over the past year, and which do you want to work with over the next year? So maybe desired and admire are the best indicators of what's actually happening here.
Right.
So you've worked with this language and you would like to continue working with this language. So
Right.
no one worked on Zig as an example, but next year the people who did work on it definitely do want to or working with, sorry, definitely do want to continue coding in Zig, being one of those newer languages I wasn't aware of. Rust,
Mhm.
I think a fair amount of people have started trying Rust, which is actually pretty awesome.
Sure. Yep.
However, the people who have tried it really like it and want to continue using it. I mean, there's a whole camp around Rust. I understand this. People who want to use like systems development and like systems development may really like Rust for
Right.
systems development. That's my
I do find the one most enjoyable is the JavaScript. A lot of people really want to learn it, and then they learn it, and they, oh, why did I learn this?
Yeah, like that is one of the shortest bars on this list, right? So
Yeah.
MATLAB's a really short bar. The other one was like COBOL,
Uh-huh.
Prolog, Fortran, Objective C, VBA of all things. Like in terms of the short,
Right.
the really short bars, like yeah, that all tracks.
Yeah.
And like even SQL has a longer bar than all of these
Yeah.
languages, which is just saying something. I don't know. There's a lot of JavaScript out there. Again, I hate to be hedging all these
Yeah.
and couching a bit, but like honestly, there's a bunch of JavaScript. I've tried some that I like. I've tried many that I don't like. TypeScript
Yeah.
for me was like oddly familiar, so it was okay.
Yep.
Everything else, just no.
And Rust, I mean, there are a lot of languages that you can use for WASM, but
Right?
WASM is getting a lot of love, and Rust is a major, isn't it like a favorite for WASM based things?
Absolutely, yeah.
And now some Kubernetes environments are running WASM instead of containers as native. I think Azure does.
Yeah, like from scratch, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is like speaking of Kubernetes, like why is Go so far down this list? And
Yeah.
I guess another question for me was like Dart is a little bit lower than I expected. There's a lot less
Hmm.
people using Dart because I've been told that Dart's having a resurgence, et cetera, over the past couple of years. So I've been tracking it, and I haven't really seen a lot of news about it. So I kind of
Hmm.
expected this result, but yeah, there's Dart and Go. The googly kind of languages aren't as
Right.
high up on this list as I expected.
And yet the ones with the biggest bars are seem to be Elixir and Zig and Clojure and
Yeah, like
Rack.
OCaml.
Yeah, you said Raku.
Yeah, Raku being Perl, right? So people who have found the new way of maybe you were already like Perl, and I did back in the day like Perl. Maybe you've
Okay.
tried the newer version of Perl and like it a lot, and therefore want to continue coding in it. But like, there's Apex in here. Apex is the Salesforce programming language,
Oh
correct?
God.
Is it SAP or Salesforce? I think it's
Hmm.
Salesforce. I don't know. But Elixir is a good standout. Elixir was
Yeah.
one. The other one I was looking for was Haskell, which actually isn't as
Mm.
far. And then Erlang, and then
Hmm.
yeah, Clojure. Those kind of languages, right? Were very they're very opinionated. So if you
Hmm.
have that opinion, or like easily swayed to that opinion, like borrowing and Rust, if you're
Right.
okay with these kind of peculiarities of the language, maybe you want to continue using it. That's kind of how I
Yeah.
was reading it.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. A quick sidebar though, have you been watching Black Mirror at all? The newest season?
I have not.
Okay, I won't
I haven't
spoil it
watched
for you.
any of it.
That's all right. The most recent season has the first episode called "Joan is Awful." Now I won't spoil it for everybody, but imagine that it's AI generated content called "Matt is Awful," and they just pick like a sample day of your life, but pick all the bad things and make it into a show that you end up watching with your partner, and then they're like, "Yeah, Matt is awful." So I immediately thought like, programming is awful, and it's kind of meta because it's Black Mirror, so it goes up and down on a couple levels and things like that just to make it interesting for you. And the first thing I thought about is like, JavaScript is awful, and it's like, okay, like how did you transpile to get this JavaScript? Where'd you come from? And then the question might be like, so perhaps you transpiled from like .NET, and .NET certainly is awful. And maybe to get to .NET, you need some assembly, like to run on the machine, and assembly is certainly awful. And I was just thinking about like all the lists, like there's definitely a top 10 of awful stuff in all of these programming languages that we're looking at, above and below. Because when we're talking about WASM, like writing WASM on its own, probably awful. Going from Rust to WASM, maybe it's a little bit less awful, but I'm sure there's some awful in there. And I just said, like, I went to Notion, like, hey, give me a top 10 list of like awful things in JavaScript, in assembly, and in .NET, just as an example. And sure enough, the results just flew. You know, when they like I got this one, like I was made for this. The results just pile in really quickly. Like, top 10 list, no problem for AI. It just the first reason assembly language is awesome is assembly language is awesome. Sorry, awful, which I thought was the best. Like, give me a top 10 reason assembly language is awful, and the first one is it's awful because it's awful. Okay, we'll leave that there. Not portable, not expressive, prone to errors, difficult to maintain. Sure, these are pretty good. Very low level. I mean, that's kind of a pro and con. Difficult to understand. Absolutely. Debugging is a nightmare. Probably. Programming language where the language below it is awful and transpired like the one above it, like machine language, is awful, also awful. And I was like, wait, that's my premise. You can't just use my premise as one of these reasons. That's one of the problems with Notion, is that we'll like use the document as you're ideating, to use that word. But like JavaScript is slow. There's a bunch of stuff in here, like has limited support for multi-threading. Like there's a bunch of actually good answers about reasons why people might hate a language. Nothing in here about the syntax, which is like what I really want to see. Just personally, I don't like the syntax in JavaScript. But also, I mentioned earlier, JavaScript is one thing. TypeScript is actually on here on its own, which I thought was pretty interesting as well. Because I guess I stick the two together, but they're really not the same at this point in time. But anyway, programming languages are awful was kind of my conclusion here. Regardless of the one you pick, you're going to have a hard time, which is why I think those long lines, so the people who have tried something and are really convinced they're going to use it the next year, are maybe more interesting to me than who's using what and where, because I think we can kind of get a feel for that by talking to people.
Yeah.
And that was my Netflix rant.
Wow. I've been as I'm listening to you. I was listening to you. I was navigating through the list of other things.
Right.
And some of these things are pretty interesting. Like I'm on Experience.
Right.
And years coding. And for each one of these things, you can either show a percentage of all respondents or just pure number of responses. Years coding. Wait, it's changed. Oh, years coding versus years coding professionally. Okay, so years coding professionally. Okay, you expect, most of them are like 5 to 9, and then it drops off until like more than 50 years.
Right.
107 people responding to this survey have been coding professionally for 50 years or more.
Yeah, not sure how good you are at math, but
that puts you at like 70 years old.
Ada was on the list, right? I thought I saw Ada.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if Ada's on the list.
I mean, 50 years ago, so what we're looking at 1970.
Okay, Ada is in fact on this list, which is like we're going back a ways, like COBOL, Fortran, Ada.
Yeah.
Also, who's using Stack Overflow after 20, 30 years?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah.
Like those are some legit graybeards, whitebeards stuff. Like we're into the
this is a pretty interesting. Interesting all over. Only 20% of respondents are from the US.
I'm trying to think here. If I started, so I've been coding for embarrassingly 20 to 24 years. But I shouldn't be significant in terms of like skill.
Right. I mean, it depends on when do you count starting coding. Is it as soon as you start, or is it at post high school
Yeah, I was
done?
thinking
Or
university because I think I started when I was 6, but I don't know if Amiga Basic counts. Like I didn't see that
yeah.
on this list. Or Basic.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it would also be, let's say 10 years old. So that's puts me at 43 years that I've been
Right.
doing this. So, um,
Now we know Matt's age. It's
yep,
open source security here.
yep. Um, yeah, I didn't know. One of the interesting things about age in the U.S.,
Mhm.
I don't know if I think they've changed. They might have changed the algorithm now, but for your Social Security card, which is like pretty core number, which
Right.
used to be not very secured. I
Right.
mean, when I was in school, I mean that would be your ID number was your Social Security number
Wow.
because nobody's going to use this for bad reasons, right?
Things have changed. Yeah.
But apparently, if somebody knew where you were born and what year, or what your birth date was and where you were born, they could guess your Social Security number and be within like 20, 30 digits.
Wow.
And, depending on your age and depending on, and then people like me totally screw it up because I wasn't born in the U.S., so that
Right.
can't figure that out.
But that makes sense, right? I
Yeah.
now understand why people try to guard their birth date in the US because I didn't actually understand why that was a big deal. And not their birthday, but like their birth year, actually.
Right.
Birth
Yeah.
date, I get. Birth year? Or their
Yeah.
age, yeah, in terms of actual security, that seemed a bit off. I've always like added or subtracted a year or changed my birth date and
Yeah.
stuff on
Yeah.
socials just in case, because like I don't think it's a concern in Canada, but you never know. So
Yeah.
I
I mean,
generally lie
usually
on those forums.
you scroll through that list and it's like, oh well, I got it close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially like remember those early days of like mobile apps where the date pickers were really
Yeah. Yeah.
just pick it's close enough.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
problem now is like, oh, sorry, your two-factor hasn't worked. What's your birth date? And it's like, oh no,
Yeah.
what did I make up for this site? Because like I totally lied.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
awful. This survey is pretty good. I think what you kind of landed on is maybe my big conclusion, which is typically the same as like who you're interviewing will define the output or like the quality
Mhm.
of what you're putting out as a report. And there are a lot of people who I'd say the majority, an easy majority is 1 to 40 years and 5 to 9 years. And an overwhelming majority, if you include 1 year to 14 years, is
Mm.
most of the coders. And we're old, we've been around for a while. So some of the stuff we're jaded about in terms of these programming languages and people wanting to come back to this next year is like, that's fine, but is this like a 3, 5, or 7 year commitment? Like
Right.
1 year doesn't really mean a lot in terms of a language, because typically you'll pick one and stick with it for a while. And then maybe you'll pick things within that family. You might go up and down a level, but you'll
Right.
pick stuff within that kind of community of languages. So for me, seeing people saying that they're going to stick with Zig, it's like that's great. Never heard of this languages. The language totally seems like a flash in the pan, and it might be awesome. Don't get me wrong. Like Nim and Crystal are on here, which I didn't think would stick around any longer, but they're on here. I don't hear about them ever, but they are on the survey. People have stuck with them. That's cool to see. But I do feel a little bit jaded when I'm looking at like something that's majoritarily like people are new to the industry or people are
Right.
just kind of getting through maybe this like senior, that kind of stuff. It's kind of like your opinion matters for sure, but
Mhm.
it's maybe something that I take with a grain of salt.
Right.
I'm sorry.
I'm already moved on to cloud platforms.
Oh
And
yeah, I mean that's a
that's
whole other.
interesting. AWS being 50%, but then like this long tail, and Hetzner is in here, which
Like
is interesting.
explain Firebase versus Google Cloud to me, because those are the same thing. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
one bought the other, and you can
Yeah.
figure out which is. The other is like, is VMware a cloud? I mean, maybe
Yeah.
it's your
And
on-prem
how
cloud.
does Hetzner get in here and Sivo not in here?
Okay.
Or
How is Vulture higher than
Vulture?
IBM Cloud?
Yeah.
Like I love Vulture. Again, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I apologize in the beginning, but I've used IBM, And I really feel like the IBM cloud is actually leagues better than Vultr. And in fact, it's many things right that other clouds don't, including
Yeah.
letting you know what your bill might be prior to getting your
Right.
bill
Yeah.
is amazing. For a company like
I think
IBM that's
that's
really concerned
still-
about cash, like, man, this is a good
I want to
cloud.
say they're still hurting from. There was a point a few years ago where they said, "Okay, we are out of this business. We are," and then like a senior vice president said, "I don't know where you got that information. We are definitely not out." And then another senior executive would say, "No, we're definitely out. We're not in this." And then it's like, "No, we're not. We're not going." It's like, and then they finally left, and yeah,
And like, okay, so like
and then they came back.
managed hosting is a cloud. Sure.
Yeah.
Co-location is a cloud. I mean, maybe. The other is like Cloudflare is above DigitalOcean and Heroku, which to me is pretty interesting because Cloudflare has workers, which yes,
Right.
definitely a cloud platform. But again, it seems like it's like an also ran thing. Again, apologies to Cloudflare. I think workers are really cool, but most people in Cloudflare will be using it for the CDN, maybe for WAF, and then because of that, they might have something in the workers. I don't see people using Cloudflare as like the primary cloud, and
But
maybe that's what I'm missing.
yeah, but this isn't saying where are you running your compute. This is saying
Is it not?
cloud platforms that you're using in some way.
Yeah. Okay. In some way.
And
Okay. So it's not
and,
exclusive. It's not the only one that you. Okay. Maybe that's what I'm reading wrong. Yeah.
and in fact, that makes me think, well, how does Cloudflare not have 90% of the market?
Or like one Cloudflare and what's the other one that's also a CDN and cloud? Shoot. Akamai actually, who has Linode. How is Akamai not most of this? Like most people will have a CDN.
You're gonna say, I was worried you were going to say the garbage company that you used to work for.
The garbage company you used to work for.
No, the horrible company.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I've forgotten the horrible
No.
company. But
No,
Azure's second place, which again, okay. So when we think of the top three, I think we think AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud in some order. Let's maybe number two is up for debate, but generally AWS is what we assume. How is Oracle and IBM so far down on this list? Or like where is it Baidu Cloud that I used to use? Where did that go?
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Yeah, and I mean Oracle for like learning to code.
It's fantastic.
It's great because I mean there's so much that you get for free.
They give you so many credits, and like they spit out Terraform. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, you have to
really
go through a
actually
painful.
cool.
I thought it was kind of a painful sign up process for
The
at least.
sign up was very Oracle. Yeah, there's a lot of T's
But-
and C's.
But other than that, it's amazing.
Yeah, would agree.
I mean, it's probably the only, at least when I last did it, it was like the only place you could host a Kubernetes cluster and not pay anything.
Right. Yeah. Which is like unheard of. It was a fantastic place to learn. Like I actually really liked it. Honestly, whenever I pick up Oracle and IBM, I'm kind of surprised at just how easy it is to get stuff done.
Yeah.
I think it's actually really difficult. And some of these other clouds that have been around for a while and have a lot of cruft. Heroku, for example, is still going strong. And it's like Heroku is one of those things that's just going to stay around because like that build process, I totally get. Vercel, I think I kind of put in the same boat in terms of like that virtuous cycle of dev, release, test, dev, release, test is really nice in both Heroku and Vercel. And maybe Netlify, I guess, is in here in the same sort of boat. Like those three, I guess, being around this spot makes sense to me. But I guess FlyIO is further down the list, but it's less of a. I haven't used Render, but I think Render is similar. So FlyIO, Vercel, Netlify, and Heroku kind of fit that bill where I don't feel like. Is it Beanstalk with AWS really is the same experience? App Engine with Google Cloud, I kind of like. Azure's got app services, which is a whole other can of worms I don't want to open today, but let's just say it's not as easy. It's pretty cool to see like those smaller players getting so high on the list just because they're very easy to use. So for me, that tells a good story about people actually trying something, maybe not putting prod in there, but at least using it. That ease of use, that onboarding that we're talking about is
Yeah.
definitely important compared to like an Oracle or an IBM, which was a little bit. There's a bit of jumping through hoops to get those.
Yeah. I scrolled down again, and I ended up on IDEs.
Oh no.
Oh God. I mean, okay, so they've got some IDEs in here, and then they got a whole bunch of editors with cool plugins. The most popular one being an editor with really cool plugins. I mean, it's IDE-esque, but it's not like Visual Studio is an IDE, Xcode is an IDE, IntelliJ. But
okay, so there's IntelliJ, and then there's PyCharm, and then there's what else is in here? WebStorm, PHP
Mhm.
Storm, DataGrip, Sea Lion, Goland, and is that it? I think Fleet might also be from the same. These are all IntelliJ.
Yeah, yeah.
Visual Studio Code is all of this in one, admittedly a little bit clunky app, but in one big app.
Yeah.
And splitting these all out and then adding them back together.
Yeah.
So let's just say Android Studio plus IntelliJ, we're already over Visual Studio.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. The people you asked didn't understand that this is the same IDE. And I get that they may look a little bit different, but for all intents and purposes, when you're in IntelliJ IDEA, you can pretend you're in PyCharm.
Yeah.
And you could purchase them separately.
Yeah.
Typically, what I've seen is that you'll get like a bundle, or you'll get like
Right.
the IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate kind of thing, which kind of
Right.
includes a lot of the functions of everything else. Because IDEA is kind of it's almost like a building block for
Right.
like how you want to code. It's pretty extensible. It's really nice. And listen, I love code, and I feel like it should be at the top. But like, did I see Adam in here? I did. Like Adam's in here. Pretty sure Adam hit the end of the line 2 years ago.
Yeah.
IPython's in here. Like, is that an IDE? Maybe. Like Qt creator.
Yeah.
Really?
It's weird.
And
Notepad++ as a IDE?
yeah, I mean that's an editor. Oh, Writer is in
Yeah.
here. Okay, I was looking for
Yeah.
Writer. So just like to compare Visual Studio to something that's similar, Writer is in
Right.
fact in here. But yeah, add that to IntelliJ and Android Studio, which like, again, all the same IDE. We're getting
Right.
there. And like, how many different versions of Vim need to be in here?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I've only seen 2, but yeah.
Well, there's another one that is Vim-esque, and that's Helix, I think.
Oh,
I think
okay.
Helix is
I
kind
only
of
know
Vim-like.
Helix from the Perforce kind of stuff.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of something else then.
No, you're probably right, because I was
Yeah.
trying to figure out how Helix would be in here. But like
Yeah.
NetBeans is in here. I haven't touched NetBeans in a long time. I'm sure it's still around. Sublime Text is way high up in this list. It's
Yeah.
possibly my favorite editor. Wouldn't call it an IDE.
No.
It's not similar to Notepad++. Like this,
Yeah.
if you want to compile something in Sublime, you're going to have some interesting stuff.
Is it still around? I mean, is that still something you can?
Yeah,
Really?
Sublime Text 3 is actually pretty good. If its claim to fame and kind of similar to a few of these editors in here is that it opens really quickly. So if you want to open up Visual Studio Code and start coding like a quick to-do note, good luck, because it's gonna like pop up a bunch of updates and like T's and C's you have to accept, and like, oh yeah, I read the release notes, definitely want to see those again, even though I told you not to last time. Visual Studio Code is impossible to get started quickly in.
Right.
Some of these editors like Vim, Notepad++, if you want to just open something out quickly and do something, those are the ones for you. Sublime Text has a really good dirty buffer system, similar from Emacs, in that if ever you open up anything, it saves it all the time forever and will sync it if you have it set to iCloud or what have you. So you can open up a dirty buffer and close the entire computer. It can die, but it's already saved. It's like a dirty buffer, just like Emacs would. Just like keep it. I think it's an option in Emacs, but keep that dirty buffer for you. So when you open it back up, it'll open up the buffer. If for those who haven't used Emacs, a buffer just means like a bunch of text that's ready to be written to a file, but hasn't been written to the file that you specified yet. However, is in a temporary file, so you can read it later.
Right.
Which is awesome. And like Xcode is kind of high up on this list too. I thought.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes sense.
And where are the browser-based code editors?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which tells me people aren't really using browser-based editors. As someone who likes it a lot, I guess the only other one that stood out to me in terms of tools is like the next one, and I could probably talk about this one for a long time. But these async tools,
Mm-hmm.
what do we think? Jira,
Hold on.
Confluence, sure. Markdown
Might it
file.
my
Oh
I
no.
closed the link. Somehow I closed it. Okay, let me get back
You
to
were
where I am.
looking at it, then you blinked, and you didn't know that like blinking was
Yeah,
a close action now.
this I hate this website.
Yeah, it could
It's
be bad.
very easy to lose your place, and then you're
I think each heading has a link to it, which I think is really nice. You kind of see those circles that like
yeah,
the
except they're unrelated to the where I've clicked.
right.
Anyway, okay, so we're on the asynchronous tools.
Yeah,
Got
right
it.
after the IDEs. So Jira,
Yeah.
Confluence, no problem. Third one down is Markdown file, not Markdown place, Markdown file. And it's an async tool in that I can save it on my computer, and you will someday sync with me on what I wrote down on my computer. Sure.
Yeah.
Moving past this, Trello still going strong, which I still do like that way of dealing with tasks just on a
Yep.
Trello board. Not convinced Trello is the right way to do it. Underneath that, we've got Notion, and then we've got GitHub Discussions. Okay. And then we've got Azure DevOps, which does not hold a candle to any of these tools in terms of collaboration. I've used it. I love it for different reasons, but in this specific one, it shouldn't have been a bullet or like a selectable box, because this is not a collaboration tool. This is very much like an approval tool, which is fine.
Right.
And maybe because of it's an approval tool, it's an async tool. But no, I don't think it belongs here. Then we've got like Miro and wikis, and somehow wikis are different than like a markdown that might hold them.
Mm-hmm.
And then it devolves after that. Like, how is Monday so far down on this list? Is no one using Monday? And then Microsoft Planner's in here. Who's still using Microsoft Planner? How is Airtable this far down this list?
Planner's a current thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a current updated product.
You can link to it from Azure DevOps, and Azure DevOps has wikis, but those wikis aren't wikis here apparently. Which is like Smartsheet's in here. I don't know if you've ever used it, but Smartsheet and Airtable to me are very much like, let's fix spreadsheets, because like they're kind of broken. What else was on here? There was something else that kind of stuck out to me. That might have been it. There's a lot of these I don't know. It was Asana, actually. It was further up. I was surprised Asana had so few people using it. And I was pleasantly surprised to see Notion so close to Trello, because I do really like Notion. I think it's got a lot of good things going for it. But yeah, like, have you heard of Adobe Workfront?
No.
Nor have I. As somebody who pays for the full combo, I've not heard of Workfront before.
There's a lot of things on here I've never heard of.
Project
tools.
Yeah. It's such a okay.
I mean,
so real time, near real time chat tools, right? Is what we're talking about. Some way of communication.
And a lot of the world is a Microsoft focused world.
Oh yeah. Okay,
and so I guess seeing Teams above Slack, I kind of can get it.
Yes. And it's good for me to see this on a list where people are using it, as opposed to them saying install base, because forcing installs on your users who are using Windows is not an indicator of growth. However, people seeing this indicator of growth, thinking that Teams is popular, will definitely use it, especially if they can get for free.
Right.
Totally makes sense. That being said, outside of like corporations, can you use Teams as a community like you can with Slack? I don't think that's true, which makes me think that like, I don't know. What does it say about community, I guess?
I could potentially invite you to the Teams instance that I have that is on my domain.
But I need to like federate somehow, right? I think it's how Teams works. Is like a weird federation.
I don't know. I don't actually use it. I mean,
I can use like my on Microsoft account to do some stuff at Datadog in Teams with Microsoft, like Microsoft proper, who do use Teams, of course, and use like a lot of the SharePoint functionalities and stuff like that. Again, of course, but getting into Teams outside of your org into another org is not actually easy. There's a bunch of API calls that need to be turned on in your 365 account and stuff like that, similar to how you'd use Google, But that
Right.
that community base, like just sign up for Slack kind of thing, is very difficult. Or like
Yep.
IRC even, or a Zoom, or a
hmm
Discord might even be easier, or Google Meet, or
Yep.
like when we're going down this list, like there's a lot of things that are easier to use, which makes me think that like, yeah, a lot of people are using Windows computers because we saw Visual
hmm
Studio was pretty high up on the list.
Yep.
And in that Windows community, we're talking people
Right.
1 to 10 years experience who maybe don't have formed opinions about what an operating
hmm
system really is, are in the Windows space using Windows tools, and because of that, they're using
Right.
Teams. I think that tracks. The
Yeah.
rest of this list had me pretty interested because Jitsi and Matrix, I think generally, one of them is like live video, the other one is kind of like an IRC. I
hmm
believe are typically deployed together. Mattermost is way too far down this list for a tool that's
hmm
honestly really awesome. WebEx Team still being around is a crime. And I think I saw Jabber in here, which is what it replaced. I'm not seeing
Did
Jabber.
I ever tell you my connection to WebEx? My personal
No.
connection?
Oh no. Did you name it?
No. When we bought this house,
Yep.
the house that we were looking at before this one,
Right.
the current owner, well, the current when I mean they've sold it since, but the current owner was the guy who started WebEx,
Wow.
the company.
Wow. Man, you need a better story than this, Matt. Why do you have such a nice house? Right place, right time.
Yeah. Lucky enough to get hired by a company like Datadog early on.
Absolutely. What about the rest in this list? Like, have you heard of people still using IRC? Because I have, and those are generally the people that you
Yeah, I
know
mean,
that they're older like us.
I mean, last time I used IRC was when we switched when Datadog switched over when we turned on. I feel like it was when we turned on public Slack, and before
Oh,
that there was
IRC gateway.
IRC support. All support
Right.
was done through IRC,
Right.
and so that's why I had it, because I was helping out with support occasionally.
Right. And I think at one point in time there was a gateway that would allow you to be
Yeah,
on IRC and communicate
yeah,
with Slack, which some people really enjoyed because IRC has been around for a while. There's a bunch of
yeah.
nice clients for it, that kind of thing. Rocket Chat is kind of similar to a Jabber, having used it
Mm,
before. And again, it's pretty full featured. It's sad to see it
yeah,
so far down this list. But I really don't know the rest of these, like Coolfire,
yeah,
Unify Circuit, Wicker, Wire, Symphony.
yeah.
Most of my work is going to be like Slack, Zoom, Discord.
Yeah. Well, one thing I
Telegram
thought
is like
was
a whole other thing. Like it's
really
gonna.
interesting,
Yep.
up at the top, you
Yep.
click on professional developers and you
Right.
see, and then switch over to learning to code.
Oh, yeah. So
It's
so this
totally different.
so this is an argument in the DevRel community is that we should stop using Slack because it's user unfriendly for communities.
hmm
It like expires messages and stuff like that, and that people coming out of university who are interested in like gaming or maybe like next
hmm
gen stuff are going to be on Discord. WhatsApp though, does WhatsApp have groups? Maybe it does.
I don't know.
It must for it to be this high up on the list. But yeah, Discord is certainly like if you're looking for hearts and minds, it feels like that's where you want to be.
Yeah.
Have I talked about Flyless on this call before? Flyless is like
No.
something that I used to do on a regular basis with other DevRel people, and the person who was running it at the time asked their child, who was like a teenage coder, what they should use, and they immediately said Discord. Like it has to be Discord,
Mm,
Discord or nothing. Like
mm,
don't use anything other than Discord, which I thought was
right.
awesome. And it really is pretty cool. It's pretty bad at video conferencing,
hmm
pretty good at everything else. Like if it's one person displaying a screen and talking to other people, it's similar to like gaming and watching other people game kind of thing.
Yeah.
It does that no problem. When it's multiple people talking at the same time, it gets a little bit chaotic around 20, but
Mm.
it's not bad.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, the only things I've done as a video thing on Discord is the Brett Fisher's high fivers, and there's only like 6 or 7 of us, so
Gotcha.
that's easy.
Gotcha. Just a little name drop there. The better podcast show.
The other one that I'm a host on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And then I think, and I actually
Which, by the way, did you see our session last week?
I did not. You don't even
Oh,
know
we
what
had
day
it.
it was on. It was that good.
It was last
Yesterday, last
Thursday.
week.
Last week.
Yeah.
Last Thursday. We
Was it good?
had we had Brendan Burns.
That's awesome. I really like
Yeah.
Brendan's work.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
It was cool.
Speaking of
It was great.
Microsoft and Kubernetes and stuff like that, yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of a shining light, at least in terms of like Azure, where all the good APIs land.
Right.
The next one here, speaking of Microsoft, kind of tells us a little bit about the survey and how it's colored. And I think this is kind of what we expected, is that like an overwhelming majority of people are using Windows
Yeah.
for both personal and professional.
Yeah.
And that kind of that tracks. And then
Yep.
when we're talking about the older crowd, the people who might have opinions about their operating system, I think this is where we land on like the Mac OS that you went to.
Mm-hmm.
And then Android, surprisingly, is actually quite popular, like worldwide, in terms of a computing platform, period, for personal use. So like outside of work, they might be using a tablet as a computer.
Okay. Yeah.
That kind of thing. It is actually quite popular. And I just know this from working at Samsung. It wasn't something I knew going in, but it is actually like a computing platform that people legitimately do use as a personal computing device. And I think, is iOS in here as well? Yeah. So to a lesser extent, it's a lot harder to use iOS as that kind of like computing platform. But some people do. And there are like shell programs for it and editors and things like that. But Android definitely trounces it.
And people are still using Solaris?
Is it me?
Let's see. Switch the number of respondents.
Is it me?
280 people. 280 people using it for personal use.
There are no ways, like these people using Haiku for professional use. I would like to find this person.
I don't even know what Haiku is.
Haiku is it's like a reimagined BOS. Do you remember BOS?
Oh yeah.
It's a real-time operating system, which has a lot of pros and cons. Lots of cons, actually.
Yeah.
I might get some hate if somebody eventually watches this video, but like Haiku is actually pretty cool in terms of it's similar to Solaris and maybe HPUX, is that your in kind of Linux, but not really these days, is like your user session is less important than what the computer's doing.
Right.
And then there are certain priority levels that you can escalate to that will like make you more important than what the computer is doing. This is all to say, like, if I'm recording audio, I never want it to skip because that is the most important thing that's happening right now. You can do stuff like that in Haiku and change the operating system way of doing it.
That was the amazing demo when I went to BOS's headquarters and got their demo, when they were still a company.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. Haiku, I think, got a browser this year that works pretty well, that is like standards compliant. So that could be why there's renewed interest in it. It's something that I follow pretty closely, but also, who's using AIX for personal use?
Yeah.
And how is Sigwin an operating system, let alone like WSL?
Yeah.
And I like how Debian's broken out, Ubuntu's broken out. And then we have other Linux based, and then Red Hat, and then Fedora broken out, which I take a little bit of umbrage here, breaking out Fedora and Red Hat, but maybe what they meant was like Asahi Linux or some other Red Hat variant that are like White Box Linux, which I think is also gone. But yeah, there's certainly a lot of others, but I did find it funny that Arch was significant enough to be broken out and be larger than Red Hat and Fedora combined for personal use, which is that tracks with the Arch crowd. And then I don't know. I feel like Chrome OS is kind of like it's still amazing, but it's not surprising to me that so far down the list, for the same reason that it's not surprising to see like those web-based IDEs that I want to see. But I don't. I think the web is an operating system. I'm still gonna card out this old nugget, but I really would like to see Chrome OS taking more market share, or Chromium OS, or something like that, where it's like a browser-based operating system. It just feels like we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And then
fascinating.
You saw the AI tools coming up. Is it worth? Is it worth knocking off a couple of these too?
Yeah.
See, this podcast is pretty long. This is why I didn't want to do too much of an intro.
Yeah. It's interesting. I didn't know that Wolfram had a AI component.
Nor did I. I know it's a plugin in ChatGPT, which is also a bit unfair.
Mm.
And I also wasn't aware of both Find and U.com.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard of those.
Yeah, and you see Neva in here, right? Pour one out for Neva.
I do
Yeah.
see Neva. I also each time I look at it, I think it says Quora P, but it's Quora Po.
It is in fact Corpo. Speaking of astigmatism, I am not a fan of Quora. I'm so sorry. I answered a few questions
Yeah.
early on, and all I got in return was spam. Like just so
Yeah.
much spam, and I've
Yeah.
unsubscribed surreptitiously. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
So again, here when we look at learning to code, and if we go between these, it feels like the pros were using more Neva than the others, but like,
Oh yeah, a little bit.
is it? No, it's less. More people learning to code are using AI, I think is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Overwhelmingly.
Far
But
more are using.
oh, okay,
Well,
they
no,
covered that.
no, no, no,
80%.
no, no. Well,
No?
it's
Okay.
well, it's so ChatGPT is 83% of 47,000 and learning to code is 85% of 4,000.
Oh, yeah. So maybe more respondents were professional
Yeah.
developers or self-identify as professional. And then similar, we've got Copilot. Short tab 9 is owned by someone else, right?
Yeah, Tab9 is a Israeli company. And they really had a working solution a service that you could pay for. I was paying for it for a good year and a half.
Oh, wow.
But they had a paid solution before Copilot was, really out of a beta and before really anything else was available.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like they never really grasped people and now it's, if you're getting Copilot through work or something,
Right.
why would you have Tab9 or something else?
Copilot's the only one that I've really used. I've seen the Code Whisperer demo kind of stuff, but honestly, Copilot's pretty good.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah. It's like now write some test cases for this is like my favorite.
Yeah.
Could you write a test harness for this, please? Because like, I really just don't want to. It's like, yeah, no problem, buddy. This is kind of 90% of what I do anyway. It's like, have you ever watched Rick and Morty, the musics, or not the musics, the little robot, and he says like, "What is my purpose in life?" And like, you fetch the salt, and you're like, "Oh no," that's what Copilot is like. You do test cases. Oh no. It's really handy for that kind of stuff. I'm not sure if I trust it yet to write proper code. Because I feel like in this case I don't know enough about what I'm doing to really point out like this is the wrong algorithm for this problem, even though it might work. So I'd rather kind of like figure it out as I go along and then use it to like refactor or whatever. It's pretty handy.
Right.
But I do find it interesting that again, between the pros and the learning the code, this is essentially the same.
Yeah.
All right, and then we get into the admired desired, I think,
Yeah.
which is databases. That kind of
I think it's worth coming back to next week.
Absolutely, this is evergreen content.
This is fun.
This kind of defines your market focus for at least in DevRel for like a whole year, if not in like sales and personas and things like that. This is kind of like how you would look at in terms of like a developer survey that's out there that hits the most respondents. This is there, and this is only like, I don't know how many developers there are in the world, but I feel like this might be 2%, 3% of all the developers, which is still enough to be significant, in terms of like,
think of all the education you can do. It's like teaching people what is an IDE. And no, it's not what you think.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like an editor and an IDE are different. Allow me to show you why. Oh, we got it.
Yeah.
I've been trying to write a talk called the Devops Dojo, which is like a terrible title, but like learning how to learn or training trainers, or like if you're going to be teaching people inside of your org how to get up to speed quickly, what does that look like? And the reason I picked Dojo is because I was thinking about training modes in games, and that's kind of it. Like, what do you really need to know to be pretty good at DevOps coming straight out of university or maybe out of high school? What are like the key 3 tools that you need to know? And like Git's one of them. An
Yep.
editor, maybe you teach
Yep.
somebody an editor, like
Mm,
Visual Studio Code, that kind of thing, and like how it's got a bunch of stuff that you need to know, and like maybe pull requests in GitHub or some sort of source
mhm,
code thing. Like here is code. Here's where you write
mhm.
the code. Here's how you push the code. Here's how people will approve your code. This could take a day. It could take 3 weeks. It
Mhm.
depends on where you are in your maturity level. And
Yep.
then similarly, if you're already in operations or already in DevOps, what do you need to know to get you the rest of the way? And then finally, if you're seasoned, how do you like learn new skills or teach people new skills, like teach those
Yeah.
two crowds prior to you? It's something I've been thinking about for a long time in sort of the gaming kind of realm, in terms of like what a training system looks like for games, but also in terms of like game theory. So if this is a
Yeah.
cooperative game, like we're all working together to get a project at the door, as opposed to like a non-cooperative game, like I need to ship this feature
Mhm.
as an
Mhm.
AWS or Microsoft developer so I can pat myself in the back and then get a
Right.
different position on a different team and then not support it.
Right.
Just different we'll call them incentives,
Yeah.
because I like that word. But I do really feel like these kind of surveys kind of give like a background, or like an easy way to
Right.
digest that kind of process and talk about like why this might differ per company, what it
Right.
might look like in the startup area right now, or what it
Mhm.
might look like in enterprise. Might be a little bit different countries,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Fascinating.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, the 2 skills that most people don't, I'm always surprised at the ones who do know it, and then that not as many people have it. So one being s the not quite the basics, but a little bit beyond,
Right.
on using Git. You know, how
Right.
can you use Git to get yourself out of trouble or out of weird situations, to do things that should be basic, but are actually kind of hard to do if you don't really understand it. And if you do it wrong, you're just going to screw yourself over.
Right.
Yeah. So that set of skills, and I definitely could use that set of skill. I mean, I don't, and yeah,
Even some of the GUIs feel like they could use a refresher on how Git
yeah.
works.
There all too often I'm finding, well, who's the Git expert? Okay, I've done this stupid thing. How do I get out of it? It's like, well, obviously. Um, uh,
Yeah, it's like git
uh,
reset caret 3. How how did you not know this?
obviously.
I had
Yeah.
an intern actually show this to me, and I was like, "How did you know this?" And he was like, "Well, everyone said Git was hard, so I figured I would learn how to use it so that when people like you
Right.
ask, we should know how to
Right.
do it. I could teach you." I was like, "Oh, okay," because this feels a little bit odd, like detached head, that kind of stuff happens, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, Git reset. I think it was caret 3 actually, not caret 3, but like to go back
Yeah.
3 steps.
Oh, interesting.
Wow. Yeah. Git reset, sure.
Um,
Git reset caret 3. Okay. All right. Now we know.
another one is just uh, navigating and visualizing a code base.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
you know where to find whatever it is that you want to do, whatever change
Right.
you want to
Like
make,
a visual
rather than just
blame,
being
or
pointed.
yeah,
Yeah,
or showing somebody the Git flow, be it like a cracking kind of down the screen, or the VS
right.
Code, I think does it a little bit differently, but yeah.
One of the developers at Datadog, because as in I mean, my former role and your current role, as in the evangelism DevRel kind of space, one of the things that we would do is, if somebody else at Datadog was going to present on something, we do a review of their presentation. Do you
Right.
guys still do that?
Mhm.
Yep. I love doing that. I used to so enjoy doing that. And one of the developers came and did a presentation on just navigating through a new code base, and it
Nice.
was fantastic. I can't remember who it was, and I can't remember what it was called, but it would have been about 2 years ago, and it
Fair
was
enough.
great. It was a great session. It was right around the time I left.
Okay.
And yeah, so yeah. Anyway,
Maybe we
I
could
think
do a
it's a
joint
skill set
session.
that, yeah,
We'll find it and see if
you
you two
find
can
that
do
guy,
a
yeah,
joint talk. Yeah. But
yeah,
those skills are really, really
yeah,
important. Some of those,
yeah,
like how to read a log. I didn't
right,
write any of that down, but like a lot of times people ask me like, "Hey, this happened, and I don't know why it happened." And
right,
like
right, yeah,
my favorite question is like, "Have you looked at the logs?" And they're like,
Right.
logs? Wait, where would I find the logs? And she's like, oh, this is amazing. This is delicious. Let's sit down for half
Let
an
me
hour.
show
We'll
you
talk.
Datadog.
No, let's just talk about logging in
Yeah.
general. And like
Yeah.
when things happen at a computer, generally there's
Yeah.
a receipt. It's like
Yeah.
it's amazing. Or like in
Yeah.
Windows, maybe they don't understand the activity.
Sure.
What is it? Event viewer in Windows and like the activity log, I guess, on Mac.
Yeah.
But they all have different names. So like, where is
Right.
this stuff? What has happened and why?
Right.
Like
And
we're
they changed it more like somewhat recently on the Mac, right?
yes, they did.
It's now the logs command, I think.
It's oh no, it's something else. Is it just
And it's no
log?
longer in var logs. It's in like
Mm.
somewhere unreachable, but you have to use this logs command, I think, to search through it. And not everything is there. And
Yeah, I'm trying to think
yeah.
of why it's like they're they're like a memo. There's a term for it, but basically
Yeah.
they're not plain logs anymore. Is the biggest issue.
Right.
Similar to the system CTL, I think, is what does logging on Unix Linux, sorry, Unix, as well as like it's not just a log file anymore. Like there's some binary logs in varlog already. It's like this is a whole journal
Right.
CTL. My apologies.
Mm.
So going through the log journal is like a whole other thing
Yeah.
that like that's another step to know about. Ugh.
Yeah.
Very important stuff though. Some people
Yeah.
don't know about
Important.
logging,
Yeah.
monitoring. Tracing
Yeah.
is like forget this is like in 3
Yeah.
years we'll talk about tracing.
Yeah.
Yes, DevOps
So-
for the masses.
Any we should stop there. And but any picks? Any picks?
Can I give like an anti-recommendation?
Yeah.
So this guy I know, Matt, recommended that I look at something called the Padcaster.
No. I did not say the Padcaster, the parrot, whatever. I have it. I don't use it. I don't like it.
I may have misunderstood the mission, but I did grab it. It actually is phenomenal. However, as someone who's gained a little bit of weight during COVID, I find that having to zoom in to 35 millimeter, which is why my face is larger than Matt's, is a little bit annoying because the device is smaller and has a bigger hood.
That's why I don't use it.
Because of the hood, it vignettes a lot, and I end up having to use a zoom lens, not the normal lens I use. Yeah. It attaches really well, but yeah, it definitely does a lot of this. And then, of course, my brightness and everything's all messed up this week because of it.
Right.
But I guess a really cool thing is that the fact that you can use like an iPhone just to reflect stuff pretty easily is awesome, actually. It transports really well. If I had more distance, like if I pulled my desk back, it would be fine. I just don't right now. But yeah,
but
I really recommend this. The newer version seems a lot better.
Yeah, that seems to have solved that thing because it doesn't have quite as much of a lip that hangs over, and it has a better tray for rather than having to fiddle with pulling that thing down and shoving the
just surprisingly difficult.
A whole lot better. Yes.
Yeah, especially when it's above a monitor.
Especially when if you've got the like a teleprompter app ready to go and you pull that thing down, you slide it in there, and in the process of doing that, you've just closed the teleprompter app, and now you have to undo that, pull it out. Oh God, I know.
Yeah, or if you have a corporate profile on it that locks it after 5 minutes or something like that, which certainly happened during the way as I was testing it. I do feel like the newer is what I was using before, which would be again an anti-recommendation. It is massive. It's really way too big, and requires a good 4 feet, possibly 5 of distance between you and the camera in order to do it, which is fairly deep. So your desk needs to be quite a bit out of the wall, unfortunately, to make it work. It's just not usable at all. This is better, but it's possibly too small. So I'm sure there's a middle ground, and that's where I'll end up next.
Yeah. I have the Parrot, which I don't use. I also got there was another one by a guy who's like a professor at some college in like North Dakota, some common, pretty well-known one, North Dakota, somewhere in that area, and which I didn't like because it was too rigid. There's a Glide Gear. I think I have the 100. It's in the garage. I haven't touched it in a long time. And the one that I use now is the exact same one, the first one I ever bought.
Really?
And I think they stopped making it probably 6 years ago. um, when the size of the larger iPad changed,
Oh,
when it went from the 9-inch to a 10-inch or something. So
10.5, yeah.
that's got to be at least 5-6 years old, because the tray doesn't. They have a tray in it. It's from a company called One Take Only,
Good.
and it's called the Pad Prompter, I think it is.
Oh, that's where I got
Um,
lost. Okay, so I
yeah,
thought you had said Padcaster. This is why I need to
yeah,
take better show notes.
yeah. Or I can take notes too. Yeah. Um,
Okay, I
uh,
have found it. Okay, this
yeah.
actually looks pretty convenient, and it's
So
getting it over
that
to
is
Open.
better. I have a monitor that's hooked. I took the tray out and have a monitor from Lilliputian,
Mhm.
and it fits in that space. I wish it were a little bigger, and I think one of the I think there will be when the builders come and like expand this wall out 2 feet and this
Right?
ceiling up 4 feet, and then they add a addition on the garage.
Yep.
When all that happens, I might be able to roll in a few technology upgrades
Ooh.
into the budget,
Oh,
and
it's like as
replace
a line
the
item.
yeah. I really I think the now that I've had a lot more experience with teleprompters, I really see the value in the I think it's Icon
Okay.
teleprompters. They come with a monitor, like their own monitor built in. I think you're at I mean, but they're like 19-inch monitors on it's a big teleprompter. And I think they average around $1,500 to $1,800.
That sounds like
Um,
a broadcast kind of thing. Nice.
they do have broadcast ones. Those are in the $20,000 to $30,000 range. I don't need that, but it would be
I
nice.
need the floating piece of glass, you know?
Well, I mean, right here I've got I don't know what this is, 27-inch or 25-inch monitor, and then right here I've got this a 9-inch monitor that I'm trying to see as the same. I would much rather have one monitor that I'm looking at
Right.
and make that be the main monitor I use just sitting here, which also happens to have a camera magically behind it, and that would like solve every problem.
Yep. I hear you.
Yeah. But,
What is on your desk this week? What have you picked up?
so I got a new gadget.
There we go.
It's a couple of things that all combine. So I saw that Elgato came
Yeah.
out with a new green screen.
Okay.
So they had one that pulls down from the ceiling,
Right.
and they had one that pulls up from the ground.
Right.
The problem with the one that pulled down from the ceiling, I didn't want to have to mount something on the ceiling. And the one that pulled up from the ground, it's only like 4 feet wide. And so as soon as you do this, move your arms out,
Right.
I'm way past that. And it's only
Also,
5 feet.
you're pretty tall.
Yeah, it's 5 foot tall.
Which we've established before.
Which I'd have to put it on like a chair and then raise it up.
Gotcha.
So they came out with a new version, which is wider.
The Excel?
It's like
Is that the one?
7 feet wide.
Is it the green screen Excel?
Yes, the green screen Excel. It's
notes.
wider, but it's not really that much taller. So it still wants somebody who is sitting down.
Oh.
All their green screens for, that pull up from the ground, they're assuming that you're sitting down in your chair. And I don't know. Ever since I've gone through so many of these like public speaking classes, and they
Right.
always, if you're if you're doing a presentation from your desk, don't do it sitting down. Always stand up. You project so much better. You have full use of all the places air goes in your body,
Right.
and you can you can sound. I mean, I can hear somebody doing a presentation that's a Zoom call, and they ask for feedback, and I says, "You're sitting down, aren't you?" Says, well, how do you know? It's like, because it sounds like you're sitting down. You got to stand up. You got to stand up to be able to get all that excitement.
Yeah.
The only time that's backfired on me was when I told that to somebody who was in a wheelchair. So that I felt terrible about that.
Listen.
But if you have the ability to stand up, stand up.
Right.
But that means that green screen is not going to work. And so I bought the ceiling mounted one that they've had for a long time. I just didn't want to mount. And so now.
Oh, look at that. Whew.
And then, I can move this light.
Yeah, apparently you're supposed to light your green screen, which is something I didn't know.
So, but I didn't want to have to lose that. And so what I have is
we're getting a rare behind the scenes look here, folks. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So now if
that's much better.
How can I change I wonder if I can change my camera to use my camera. No, I can't use
for those listening. Matt's green background is now brighter.
Yeah.
and has come down behind him.
Yeah, so I have basically two Govee. I bought two Govee bulbs,
right?
That are Wi-Fi addressable, and they're in a clamp light. Just a clamp that clamps onto my desk. So there's one right there and another one right there, just next to me. And they're shining a green light onto the green screen.
Very cool.
And it's lighting it pretty well. It's not perfect. I just hooked this up 20 minutes before this call.
Oh, okay. It might be spilling onto you too. Your white balance.
I need to. I've got a really great, like one of the amazing things that you can get for like to make your studio a little bit better. Is this stuff called
money?
Yes. No, there's this stuff on a roll that you can get, and it feels like a super, super thick aluminum foil, except it's black.
I know what that's called. I was thinking Duvetine, but you're thinking of it's like what you make like blocking. It's how you block light, basically, for a lot of stuff. Yeah.
It's like a super, super thick aluminum foil.
Cinefoil?
It's black, huh? Cinefoil, yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
And so you bend that around. You don't need to tape on anything.
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
It's like amazing. So put that on there, and that'll block the light from spilling onto me, and help aim it onto that back. And very so, cool. Yeah, because right now, if I turn off those lights,
it's honestly not too bad. I'm nitpicky. I would notice.
So there's one off.
Oh, you can just one off. It looks a lot better. Yeah.
There's the other one off.
Very cool.
So yeah.
That is a nice rig.
I'm excited about that.
Heck yeah.
This is now if you could see the way it's located. So imagine let's see. Imagine this is my room. This is my room.
Okay.
Here's the camera over here.
Right.
I'm standing somewhere over here.
Yeah.
And here's the back wall. The green screen is basically right here up.
Oh, interesting. It's
it's too long. Oh. It's the room is about 6.5 feet wide. Okay. And the green screen is about 7 feet wide.
It gives you a nice gradient though, which is pretty cool.
Yes. Except that's why this side is a little darker.
Which honestly, like Zoom at least seems to be pretty forgiving about its green screen settings, and apparently that NVIDIA one is like magic.
Oh yeah,
so I think that should be okay. But I'm not sure about this app, so we're using StreamYard behind the scenes. I've noticed that it's not that great at green screening, but we can try it next week and see what happens.
Maybe what does it do? Oh, it does do a virtual background. I have a green screen.
Yeah.
And let's.
There we go. Not bad at all, actually. Way better than I expected. Okay. All right. There we go.
Yeah.
Not bad. I like this new house you've got there.
Yeah, I know. It's I feel like we have the same stones in our
There
house.
You go. It's
so
even
turn on the green lights.
It doesn't I don't even know if you need it. This is way better than the first time I tried it on stream.
Yeah. Cool. I mean it does a good job. I mean even the
what
little hair I can pull off. I mean, I can see that.
Your little Homer Simpson curls are sticking out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it looks okay.
It's longer this way. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The beard's fine.
Yeah.
Good job. I like it.
Yeah.
All right, folks,
Yeah.
you
So
heard
that
it
was
here
my.
first. It was sponsored by Elgato, maybe in the future, but this is
Yeah.
the third
Yeah.
Elgato recommendation. It's nice when everything comes from one company.
Yeah. I mean, there are probably better greens. There are definitely better screens, but what's really nice is that because it goes into the roll, it comes down really flat. It's a very high quality material.
Awesome.
And I have one of the ones that's kind of a round circle that folds out and like
I've got
pops
one of
up.
those. Yeah,
And
awesome.
it's well, the one I have is actually from like Westcott, I think.
Okay. Probably better than
So it's a much higher quality fabric, and as soon as you pop out, there are no wrinkles. All wrinkles are gone, and
Gotcha.
I think it's the one I have is just white and black.
Gotcha. I think the awful part of mine is that it's oval, and getting it into a circle again is next to impossible.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. It's a skill. You know, we talked about the skills for developers. That's definitely a skill.
This is one of those DevRel skills, like
Yeah.
how to fold up an oval reflector into a circle.
Yeah, it is a challenge. And then the green screen that I have before this is actually another one of these oval circled ovals but it's like I think 3 foot by 4 foot from some company in Medellin, Colombia.
Interesting.
But the Westcott one, I think it's Westcott. I mean, it costs more money. But for that,
Westcott's primo.
Yeah, for that, they also do this bar that attaches to the top of a light stand, and the bar, it's ridiculously expensive for what it is. It's just a piece of metal, just one piece of metal with 2 magnets on the end. That's it. That's the entire thing. They charge like $170 for it or something. Ridiculous for like what should be $10, maybe. It just attaches to the top. Maybe it's $70, but I think it's $170. But easily a fantastic investment. And it is, for just getting any sort of light stand and then hanging this, big green screen on it. It's magic. It does otherwise you're getting 2 light stands and clamping that green screen onto it, and then they're always not quite right, and they're always about to fall over. Whereas this bar that is $10 worth of material for $170, it just makes everything magic. It's fantastic.
Maybe it's worth it.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, we went way over today. I think we're at
we did.
Yeah, an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
That was good though. I feel like we had a lot to get off our chest.
I did too. Let's turn off those green lights. Yeah, I don't know if the green lights really I needed it.
I don't know. It seems like you're doing okay without it.
Yeah.
Maybe this is one of those places where software has actually solved a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I need to pull this into of course I also have my blinds open. So if I close the blinds, look at that.
Yeah, not that great. Okay.
Yeah, that is that's pretty awful. Okay. So
well, now we know.
And that light helps it, and that one does too. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Looking much better.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Shall we find the end stream and broadcast?
I think so. I think we can find it.
Great podcast as usual.